I didn't understand why my foster parent used to abuse me. I didn't understand why kids at school pick on me. I was never accepted in anything that I've ever done in my life growing up, just for the simple fact of I was just dealt what they call a bad hand. But I didn't make any excuses. I played with the cards I was dealt, and it worked for me. And I give all my credit to God for that. And it was just, just being confused and growing up just for the simple fact that I didn't have my mom. She didn't want to do anything to do with me. I was like 5 years old at the time. It was kind of like, I didn't ask to be here. You brought me here in this world. So I used to think, what did I do at 5 years old to make my mom not want to be a part of my life anymore? So it was a struggle, and then being in an area that I grew up in, it was poverty, majority Hispanics and blacks, but I didn't even fit in because I was light-skinned. My skin was lighter, and I had green eyes. So I was considered, I didn't fit. I wasn't, they would call me a sellout, and it was just because of the color of my skin. They were black. I was the same race as them, but because I looked different than them, I was considered pretty. And that was a problem. I used to get picked on. I used to be a target. That was a sign of weakness. If you looked rough and you had this dark skin, it was more intimidating to be that. And if you were me, my skin color, you were soft. So I always had to prove myself. And it got to a point where when you get abused so much, regardless if it's from your mom, from your grandma, people at school, you build this hate and this anger, and everybody has a tolerance. Everybody has a level to where everybody has a limit. Everybody has a limit to where you just keep pushing that button until you just activate some demon. And that's how I looked at it. It was that deep to where I had anger issues growing up just from the things that I was doing. That was something that just was built in me. I used to throw temper tantrums and slam stuff. But I would never harm anybody. So when people would harm me, I would let them because I felt like that was normal. I was so used to it. I feel like this is what's supposed to happen. I was put on this earth to be a punching bag. And it just got to a point when I was in the 6th grade, I just got tired of crying. I got tired of hurting. I got tired of people I was always the outsider. Every time my dad would leave somewhere to go with whatever girl he was with, my dad was kind of like, you could consider him a rolling stone. He was all over the place. And my stepmom, when she would get tired of it, she would take my sisters, they would leave, and I get dropped off somewhere. That was always my life right there. So I grew up learning everything on my own. Everything. But everything that I couldn't learn was all negative stuff because the environment that I grew up in. I got tired of people putting their hands on me. So then I started learning how to defend myself, and then I started going out and having fights, and then I started getting really good, and I learned how to get that anger with that aggression, and it made me very violent. I needed that to protect myself. People on the outside looking in would see me getting a fight and think, oh, that's just that kid right there is going to be a troublemaker when he gets older. That's just a violent, horrible, bad kid. Where are his parents? It's the first thing you think. You don't realize that kid was never like that at first. No kid on this earth comes out of their mom's womb throwing up gang signs. No kid. No kid. So it's not, they weren't born that way at all. If you imagine you all trading places with me from 1989, yes, I'm 26 years old, but 1989 till now, nobody in here will be sitting in those chairs in the position that you're in now if you had to live my life. It's just different. Y'all were given a different chance than I was, and that's just how life works, and I understood that. So I accepted that, so I dealt with what I had to deal with. And I committed crimes, and I did horrible things that I hate that I did. But at that time, that was my way of surviving. It's not that we want to kill, we just don't want to die. That at the end of the day, that's what it is. So we're protecting ourselves. When you see people, the legislators and people in the communities that don't even live in the communities come and try to pass some kind of law, but what they fail to realize is the 10-year-olds and the 11-year-olds and the little kids, guess what? Those same killers that you're trying to keep out of that gated community is the same killers that staying right next door to us. When I'm walking out my house at 10 years old, every day, it's killers in every building. Got stacked up in one building with murderers and everything. My life is, you know, at 10 years old, I can walk to go play basketball and bam, my life is over. We're in there with the killers. We live with them. We live around them, or they're probably in our house living with us. Because you got some moms that kids don't have a real dad, so they found some guy in prison that gets out of prison, and the mom, they've been writing letters and stuff. So now the lady is now bringing the prisoner in her house with her daughter. I have a friend that's happened to, and guess what? That guy raped her several times. And the mom never knew about it until, 5 years later, and then he finally ended up going to jail, but that girl's life was destroyed. Because she ended up becoming basically a prostitute, ended up getting that HIV, getting AIDS, and she died. You know, so those are the type of stories that I had to live through. But one thing about having a mentor and having a teacher I want to say real quick is, and that's what I look at mentors as teachers, because could any of you imagine, let's say kindergarten, started kindergarten, right? And as soon as you sit in the class, you're ready, you got your lunch kit, your mom packed you all kinds of stuff, took a million pictures to annoy you on your first day of school. You get home, you get to school, you ready to color, and a teacher walks in there and she grabs a stack of books this high, from kindergarten all the way to senior year, lays them on your desk, tell you, hey, figure it out from here on out, you're on your own, and walks out. Who's gonna graduate high school? This is kindergarten. You shouldn't even be thinking about high school, because that person came in and dropped all those books and said, you're on your own from here on out. You got to start worrying about that now. How are you going to make it? What would police officers be without sergeant? What would a Marine be without a lieutenant or whatever? I don't know the actual names that they have. What would a football player be without a coach? You know? So that's us young kids where I'm from without parents. If you don't have a teacher and you're like, oh, I can't make it through high school, imagine growing up without a parent and having to make it through life, having to figure out everything on your own. But see, the news wants to portray a certain image that's not the case, and it's sad, but at the same time, it's like, we have to accept that. Because when you look on the news, like, I've been seeing on the news, LA having high-speed chases like every day. And there was one guy, he was on a high-speed chase, he got out the car, he was doing all like this, and the police were like, all right there, and it's like, it was kind of like that hood side of me was like, man, like I was watching an action movie, I was kind of like, man, you better start shooting. Just stand there doing like this, they gonna shoot you. But I mean, it's not funny, and nobody died or anything like that, but people see that and they think that, oh, you know, they see, oh, two young black kids killing each other, black on black crime. You know, and people look at, oh, you know, that they need to stay where they're at, you know, all that violence. But they don't show those two kids before they died the story on how they grew up. Then you would probably understand, oh, okay, so that makes sense. I have a friend, he was always telling me, he knew my story, and he never grew up around any of that. It was all amazing to him when he would hear it. And I used to tell him, he used to tell me, Mack, you're just different. God just put his hands on you and said, I'm just gonna change your life. He used to always say you're just God's gift. All those other kids, they just don't care, they don't want to change. I showed him this thing on Netflix about this guy from Atlanta who just exposed his whole lifestyle, and it was real raw and uncut, robberies and everything, but he made a documentary out of it and ended up winning an award. And when my friend sat there and watched that whole document, the whole time he's like, oh my God, did he just do that? Did he just do that? And then at the end of it all, he said, you know what? I understand why he did everything that he did. He said, if I grew up like that, I probably would do the same thing. So imagine having that mentor and having somebody in your life to teach you those certain things that you need. The most successful people in life, whether it's Jay-Z or Bill Gates, had somebody teach them the things that they learned in order for them to be successful. And that's what these kids need, somebody just to give them a hug. Like, I'm proud of you so many times since I've been out of jail that, like, I still can't get enough of it. I've never heard that. Those were all new words to me. I've always heard that I would never make the C-21, I would never amount to anything, I'm good as dead, I deserve to be in hell for all just hateful things from a little kid all my life. That's all I heard. you know, and that can mess with your brain. That can have you start to believe those lies, and then you start to, you know, act off those, and you just get to a point where you're like, they're right. I'm never gonna amount to anything. I don't have, look at where I'm at. How am I gonna make it out of this? You send me in a jail or in a prison full of killers and murderers and rapists, and what you expect me to come out a doctor? It's not gonna happen. I'm gonna come out 10 times worse than what I was before I went in. That's not the solution. Some of these kids just need somebody just to guide them. I had a family take me in, and Steve and all these people, you know, they took, and I moved to a whole different environment. When I was exposed to that new lifestyle, when I was exposed to families, people having family time and going downstairs and watching TV, oh, Mack, come downstairs, family night. Like, what? Family who? Family night, we're watching movies, everybody laughing. Like, I only saw this on like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like the Cosby's. Like, I thought it was just like, you know, a fantasy that just, people where I come from, we just love to just look at, just to picture, imagine in our head what we would wish could happen. When I was exposed to all that, it changed my whole outlook on life. I was given something that could never be taken away from me anymore, because once I saw that new life, once I saw how families are supposed to go, how the man works, and the woman take care of the kids, and the man's being not only the provider, but also the parent as well, and treating his woman right. I learned all those. Just in that small period of time, it made me promise myself that I would never go back to the ghetto unless I was going back to make a change. I would never go back to jail. I would never. Once I saw that, I never knew it existed. You know? And I never knew that I would ever get the opportunity to be exposed to it. And I look at it, and even me still relating to all these kids, I'm like, man, if they only knew. If they only knew. We all can make them know. We can show them, we can expose them, and it will change their minds. And just to have somebody to love them and care about them. Everybody in there can have one person they can raise their hand and say, I love this person to death, this person loves me. When you go where I'm from and you tell them to raise their hand, they're not going to raise their hand. Because nobody loves them. We're counted out. I was already determined, it was already destined that I was going to prison when I was born. Just by my family, just by the people that birthed me. Just looking at their lifestyles, and that's not fair for kids. Because as parents, they trust in us to lead them and guide them in the right path. We've just been leading and guiding in wrong paths. And don't let me sit here and for people to think that I'm making excuses. I made a bad decision. I robbed people. And that was my fault. I'm not going to blame my mom. I'm not going to blame my past. I still had a choice that I had to make. I felt like I had to do it in order to survive, but listen to the key word, I felt. I didn't have to do anything. Those were the lies that I was believing in my head. I made a choice, and I suffered the consequences for it. But I don't want anybody else to suffer anymore. I feel like we can make those changes, and we can impact these kids' lives. And I think that the more people that's on board, the better opportunity, better chances that we got to stop depending on these presidents and these governments to change these laws.